Damron here. Today I want to talk about what to eat when you're struggling with adrenal fatigue or HPA axis dysfunction. I've done a lot of videos all about adrenal fatigue, HPA axis dysfunction, what it is, symptoms of it, all of those things. So I'll link those in the description below. But today we're going to specifically talk about what to eat and food that will help support your adrenal glands. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, hit that button to be notified anytime I post new content related to women's health, hormones, or holistic health. So like I said, adrenal fatigue is not even a widely accepted diagnosis. A lot of people know that term, and so I use it. But what we're really talking about here is when your body is under too much stress. So that might be emotional, physical, mental stress. And that can be due to trauma, it can be due to overwork, it can be due to lack of sleep, overexercise, undereating, overeating, lack of minerals and nutrients, a whole bunch of different things. And like I said, there's lots of videos that I've done all about this. But when we have that happening, our body helps us cope with that by producing more stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline. And over time, when we're exposed to too many stress chemicals, our body has to start to compensate for that by, using up extra hormones. So depleting progesterone or DHEA causes more inflammation, throws off blood sugar balance, throws off mineral balances, throws off lots and lots of different things in our body so that we start to have the more common laundry list of symptoms like insomnia. Maybe it's hard to fall asleep or stay asleep. Maybe you're noticing blood sugar crashes, like you're feeling hangry or jittery in between meals. Maybe you start to notice more anxiety, overwhelm, depression, just less resilience to stress. Maybe you start to notice more PMS symptoms, or that your periods or cycles are changing. Maybe you start to notice energy crashes, or that when you wake up in the morning, despite sleeping okay, you are just exhausted and feel like you need 8 more hours of sleep. Maybe you're starting to notice that you're stiff and achy in the morning. All of these different things, there's digestive issues that can be associated with this. All of these things can be due to too many stress chemicals for too long. So today I want to talk about how this is a multifaceted approach, but today I want to talk specifically about food and how to incorporate good nutrition to help your body kind of get out of this state. As we know, food plays a really, really important role in how we feel, right? Food is nutrients, it's all of those vitamins, minerals, enzymes, antioxidants, etc. And that can really change how we feel for the better or the worse depending on how we're eating. And so I always am a big fan of using my framework, protein, fat, fiber at each meal, and making sure that we're getting in as many minerals as possible. So I'm going to go through and talk about things to maybe reduce or avoid a little bit, and then things that we want to add. Now, as a caveat, I'm not a big fan of saying no sugar, no dairy, no gluten, no soy, no caffeine, no alcohol. There are a lot of practitioners out there that do that, and I think that that is one of the least helpful things for patients. It's not sustainable, it's not realistic, people have a hard time being compliant with it, and it also gets us in this mindset of feeling like something is wrong with us. So if you have to eat like you are sick, or you have dysfunction, it starts to lead you down this path of feeling like you're constantly needing to fix something, there's something wrong, and that also can stimulate the stress response more. So I think that limiting these things and having fewer of these things in some capacities can be helpful, but I'm a very much proponent of being against kind of the all or nothing, and living a little bit more in this gray area. So first I want to talk about macronutrients. So macronutrients are going to be our protein, our carbohydrates, our fat, and alcohol is actually a 4th macronutrient, but we're specifically going to talk about the first 3. So there's a lot of things that this framework can be helpful with. Like I mentioned earlier, following a protein, fat, and fiber at each meal will help regulate your blood sugar, which will help the stress response. So remember that blood sugar and cortisol are a little bit like a chicken and the egg. When we have dysregulated blood sugar, like we eat a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of highly refined sugars, things like that, our body starts to become more dysregulated, right? We're producing more insulin, and that can be a stressor on the body. Simultaneously, when we are constantly in the stress response for, emotional stress, for example, that needs a lot of fuel. And so your body will leach glucose out of the liver and muscles to help fuel that stress response, and therefore more insulin will be produced to help mop that back up. So blood sugar and cortisol are a little bit of like a cycle and like a chicken and the egg thing. But for nutrition, we definitely want to eat so that we are balancing our blood sugar. So to do that, like I said, make sure there's a protein, fat, and fiber on your plate. In terms of amounts, I would start there, just making sure that there is one or all three of those components on your plate. If you want amounts, I would start with something like 30 to 40 grams of protein, depending on how many meals you eat a day. I would start with about 1 to 2 tablespoons of a healthy fat and about 10-ish grams of fiber. And that would be accurate if you ate about 3 meals a day. If you eat more than that, you could probably like lessen that amount per meal and kind of divvy it up throughout the day. But in general, that's what you want to do. And in the other terms of amounts, I also ask my patients to really look at their biofeedback. So is hunger, energy, cravings, mood, and sleep in check? If those 5 things are in a good place, you're not feeling hangry, you're not craving a bunch of sugar or salt or carbohydrates, you're not, having energy crashes and feeling really fatigued, you're not feeling like very irritable in between meals, you're sleeping okay. Those are all great signs that your body is handling how you're eating and doing fairly well with it. If any of those things are off, we may want to look at your nutrition to make sure that you are fueling your body appropriately. You're eating in regular intervals, you're eating enough, you're not eating too much, you're eating the right portions of things, so not too many carbohydrates and too little protein, all of those things. So I always say hunger, energy, cravings, mood, and sleep. And that came from Dr. Jay Tita. He's a naturopathic doctor, and he always says like your HEX in check or SHMEX in check. And that's kind of like the acronym for that. So I think that's a really great acronym and kind of like a great little checklist for you. So anyways, those are the macronutrients, and we've talked about these in a lot of other videos. I can leave the links in the description below for those too, but they all help with certain things. So like, for example, protein helps in a myriad of different ways. Protein does a million different things for us, but protein can help with regulating your blood sugar, so it buffers the insulin response. It's also the raw materials to all of your neurotransmitters. It's amino acids. It helps every single cell. It's a building block. So that's a very, very quick overgeneralization of what protein does. It's amazing for us. It helps maintain lean muscle mass and build muscle, which is helpful for hormonal health. Fiber also helps to feed your gut microbiome. So you've heard about like your gut bacteria. Fiber helps feed that. It also will help to regulate your insulin response by slowing down the digestive process. And healthy fats help to keep you full and satisfied longer, as well as if you eat omegas, which we'll talk about this here in a second. When you're stressed, you start to deplete your omegas. And so we need a lot of omegas when we're stressed. And omega-3 fatty acids help with anti-inflammation as well. You may hear about inflammatory foods. And this is a little bit of like a nuanced conversation, but inflammatory foods are those that have been shown to increase inflammation in our body when consumed in large amounts on a regular basis. This is not following the 80-10 principle, or sorry, the 80-20 principle or 90-10 principle. This is like your diet is primarily consisting of these things. Chronic inflammation can contribute to a myriad of health problems like heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, etc., brain stuff. So a few examples of some inflammatory foods, and again, the dose is really the poison, are like processed and refined carbohydrates, like white pasta, white breads, baked goods. These can cause a rapid spike in insulin, which can contribute to further inflammation. Sugary drinks, alcohol, those types of things can definitely also cause a very rapid blood sugar spike due to its low fiber content. And keep in mind that these foods are usually also stripped of their nutrients. So they're very highly processed. They don't have a lot of minerals and vitamins in there. They might be fortified, but they don't have great natural reservoirs of that. And they also are stripped usually of like fiber. They're usually pretty low protein, all of those different things. Things like trans fats, so like margarine or baked goods, Those also have been known to increase inflammation. Vegetable oils can also be known to increase omega-6 fatty acids, which in terms of the fatty acids, we want a good ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. Ideally, that ratio is about 1-to-1. In the standard American diet, usually it's about 15-to-1 ratio. So we want to start incorporating more healthy sources of fats, which we'll get into in a minute, versus like highly processed trans fats, etc. So again, I'm not against any of these foods. I certainly consume some of these things too, but you want to first make sure that you are getting in the other stuff first. So I'm a much bigger proponent, instead of saying cut out, stop eating, avoid, eliminate these other foods, of saying, okay, what do we actually need to get into our diet, which we're going to talk about next. So first, let's talk about healthy fats to eat. So things like nuts and seeds, avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil, nut butters. These are all really great forms of healthy fats that will also support the adrenal function. Remember that healthy fats also are anti-inflammatory. They also support brain health, and they also support hormone production. So our sex hormones are produced by cholesterol, so we need adequate amounts of healthy fats for these things to be produced adequately. We've talked about this a little bit already, but lean, healthy sources of protein. It helps to balance out your blood sugar level, should leave your hunger, energy, cravings, mood, and sleep in a better place. So eating things like lean, healthy protein, eggs, beans, and legumes are good sources of things. Some soy products, some dairy products, if you can tolerate that. These are all great sources of protein. Fruits and vegetables, you guys, literally the sky is the limit here. Eat as many fruits and vegetables as you can. I know that we're told with fruits to avoid fruit. It has a lot of sugar, it's unhealthy. Fruit is great for us. It supports a lot of minerals, so things like potassium and vitamin C, antioxidants. It has fiber in there. It really is super beneficial for our health. So if you struggle with eating vegetables, or your kiddos do like mine, give them fruit. Blueberries pack an amazing punch nutritionally with fairly low calorie and really high nutrient content. So those are one of my favorites. But truly, like, the sky's the limit. Eat the different colors. They all have different little health benefits for us and different amounts of things. So your reds, your purples, your oranges, your yellows, your blues, like any of those things, eat the different colors of the rainbow. Whole grains are also good. They can help to, again, have that fiber content to feed your microbiome. In general, when you're looking at carbohydrate sources, what you want to look for is the total carbohydrate to fiber ratio. Ideally, it should be about 10-to-1. So for every 10 grams of carbohydrates in the product, there would be 1 gram of fiber. So if you have something with 30 grams of carbohydrates in it, there should be at least 3 grams of fiber, and that's how you know that it's a lower processed food. That will help, obviously, like I said, feed your gut microbiome, slow that down the digestive process. Fiber is really great for us. And lastly, eat some fermented foods. So fermented foods are things like kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi, apple cider vinegar. Those can also reduce inflammation, help support our gut health, and also our immune health. So I like to tell my patients to get a little bit of fermented foods in their diet, mostly every day. A quick and easy way to do it is, like I said, kombucha is great and easy, or like a little tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. The other thing that I think is very, very helpful for the adrenal glands is getting in your minerals. So through eating this way, you should be able to get in your minerals, but I want to talk specifically, briefly about which ones. Number one, you want to get your vitamin C in. So we're told forever to avoid fruit juices. Fruit juices are terrible for us. I encourage my patients to do what I call like a little adrenal cocktail, which is a citrus juice, so pineapple juice, grapefruit juice, orange juice, and yes, it has glucose in it, but glucose is what shuttles the electrolytes into your cells. So glucose is actually a really healthy, good form for us. Now, we don't want it in excess, obviously, but a little bit of glucose, as in 2 to 4 ounces of orange juice, is actually very nourishing to the body. That's how our body likes to run. So I like to do that. I like to do about 4 to 6 ounces of some coconut water, and you just get like the plain coconut water, and then about 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. This has your sodium, potassium, and whole food vitamin C, which is really, really nourishing for your adrenal glands. I really highly recommend all of my patients do that. If you just are adamantly opposed to the sugar content in there, or you don't want to make that, there is a product on Wellevate called Jigsaw Health Adrenal Cocktail that's also very good. I've used it personally. It tastes a little bit like sea salt, but it does have all of those components in there as well. So I like to tell my patients to do that. You can do it. I like to do mine while I work out in the morning early, but some people love to do it like for their afternoon energy crash, and you can even do 2 a day. It's just, it's like your electrolytes and whole food vitamin C, so you can't really like overdo it too much. So I think 1 to 2 a day of those, especially depending on how tired you are, the state of your adrenal glands, how stressed you are, those types of things is good. The other thing that is very imperative for healing adrenals is magnesium. So we can eat magnesium in certain foods, but I also think that a lot of us need to supplement a little bit with it in some capacity. So Epsom salt baths are great. Epsom salt foot soaks are great. You can get Ancient Minerals, has oils or lotions or sprays that you can use, or you obviously can take magnesium internally through a capsule or powder. Now, if you take magnesium, you want to make sure you're working with a healthcare provider, because things, for example, like low blood pressure, if you're on like blood pressure medication, magnesium can make it worse. There are certain other pharmaceuticals and medical conditions that magnesium might not be appropriate for. So you really do want to consult with your physician or healthcare provider anytime you start adding in different supplements. The other thing that I love for adrenal fatigue is maca root. And I don't love every maca root because maca is super sensitive to oxygenation, but there is a company called Feminescence Maca that puts theirs in little blister packs. And again, this is a supplement, but I just wanted to offer you this as a bonus because it's something that I've used in my own life and I really, really like it. And so you can check that out. I'll leave the link in the description below for that as well. But it really is a wonderful product. So again, don't just go out and take maca, like make sure that it's going to work for you, consult with your healthcare provider. But it is something that I give a lot of my patients, and it can be really helpful for general hormone balance as well as supporting your stress response too. You want to also make sure that you are eating in regular intervals. Regular intervals are going to help your adrenal glands and your blood sugar stay stable so that you're not riding these blood sugar roller coasters and your brain doesn't freak out about when the next meal is going to be. So for those of you who are struggling with any sort of adrenal fatigue symptoms or the stress response, high stress, intermittent fasting is not going to be great for you. Even proponents of intermittent fasting tell you if you are under a lot of stress, you're dealing with these types of symptoms, please don't intermittent fast. I think more like the difference here is that I don't really know that many women who need to add a stressor to their life. Most women need to subtract them, but please be mindful of how often you are going long periods of time without eating. I generally recommend my patients go about 12 to maybe 13 hours without food overnight. But then we definitely want to eat. And this is all dependent on you, your lifestyle, when you're working out. All of those things are definitely very dependent on when you eat your food. So in general, like every 3 to 4 to 5 hours is a good amount of time to eat. And again, listen to your hunger, energy, cravings, mood, and sleep. Those things should feel stable for at least 3 hours after food. Otherwise, that's kind of a sign that your blood sugar is bouncing around quite a bit, and that might be due to the adrenal fatigue, that might be due to what you're actually consuming, that might be due to your insulin levels, so something to maybe investigate a little bit further, but definitely look at that. The one other caveat I will give you is people ask me a lot about alcohol and caffeine. So let's start with caffeine. I'm a big fan of what I call caffeinating responsibly, and what this means to me is your cortisol level is already really high in the morning, and obviously you have an entire day ahead of you to metabolize that caffeine. So in my opinion, I think most people do just fine with 1 cup of coffee or about 250 milligrams of caffeine in the morning, but make sure that you are stopping caffeine for 8 hours before you are going to go to bed. And also, if you're needing like that afternoon latte every day and you're just crashing, that is a sign that something else is off, either your cortisol level or blood sugar. So there's something that we could investigate a little further and get you like an actual root cause approach to avoid that, because it's probably also impacting sleep later, which is leading you down a vicious cycle. So caffeine, look at how you feel. I definitely do half caff or less than that even now, because I was feeling very jittery and anxious when I drank full-on caffeinated coffee, so I don't do that anymore. So I think it's important just to like look at yourself, look at your body, look at how you feel with things, and support your body based on that. With alcohol, I drink alcohol too occasionally, much less than I used to, but I have to just spell this out. Alcohol is a poison to your body. Your body does not like alcohol. It really does nothing healthy for us. With that said, it's a social thing. It's the most, sociable drug out there. So I think that it can be part of a lifestyle, but I think that we need to be very mindful of it. Your liver takes precedence over alcohol, and so therefore it can't process out other toxins or other hormones or things like that. It can be inflammatory, it can throw off your circadian rhythm, and it also can throw off your stress response. So it's obviously a depressant at first, but then your body rebounds quickly after that with a lot of cortisol to really combat the effects of alcohol. It can also deplete certain minerals and things like that. So it is something to be very cognizant and careful with. You definitely don't want to overconsume it. There's a lot of research that shows I have to look at the newest research. I can't remember if it's 2 drinks a week or 3. I read this a while back, but it can definitely increase your risk of things like breast cancer. So, and pancreatic cancer, there's a lot of research in the effects of alcohol as a carcinogen as well. So it can fit into a healthy lifestyle, just like sugar, just like gluten, just like dairy, just like all the other things can. But we just want to be mindful of how much we're drinking, how it's making us feel, the effects of it. We're not going to be sleeping as great when we consume alcohol at night. So just be mindful of how much alcohol you're actually consuming. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you have friends and family who need this information, are struggling with feeling like garbage due to their stress response, send this video over to them so that they can start at least incorporating good foods to support their body. I also have some really exciting news coming, hopefully next week in the next video. So be on the lookout for that. If you're not over on my Instagram account or the Holistic Health with Allie Damron Facebook page, come join me there. They'll be the first to know about it. And yeah, I will be back next week with a brand new video. I'll see you guys all then.